the Pittsburgh Penguins. Another disappointment. But I do want to dive in because there is a lot of interest here. They were 5th in the Metro last year, just missed the playoffs. They were 10th in Corsi for percentage, 5v5, 11th in expected goals for percentage, and 12th in scoring chances for percentage. Their 5v5 shooting or save percentage was 13th at 908, so their goaltending wasn't terrible. Their shooting percentage of 5v5, 9.48%, which was 17th in the league. So, I mean, it's not as if they were like incredibly unlucky at 5v5. Their power play percentage was horrendous. 31st in the league, 15.3%. Shocking. But like, let's look at the underlying numbers here. So their Corsi for per 60 was 6th. Their expected goals for per 60 was 7th, and their scoring chances for per 60 was also 7th. But they had the 31st ranked shooting percentage on the power play. So that to me, it looks as if there's going to be some major positive regression.
That screams some value. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think there's going to be a ton of value to be had with the Penguins. Their key departures, Jeff Carter, Pierre-Olivier Joseph. You can argue whether or not those are key. Their key additions. Rutger McGroarty is going to probably play in the lineup, which is interesting. A rookie that's fairly highly touted. That wanted out of Winnipeg just because the opportunity wasn't there. And Pittsburgh, I mean, they need some youth. So that's an interesting. And then Cody Glass as well. That's another situation.
Oh, yeah. I forgot he was on the Penguins.
He was getting moved down the depth chart in Nashville, and Pittsburgh was like, actually, we'll take him off your hands if you'd like. Kevin Hayes was acquired in the offseason. Anthony Beauvillier as well, another guy that, I mean, could get an opportunity higher in the lineup. We'll see. I think there's an open spot on Crosby's left side that could go to one of 3 guys that we'll get into. So goaltenders. Tristan Jarry last year had 48 starts with a 912 even strength save percentage, and Alex Nedeljkovic 33 starts with a 905 even strength save percentage. That was a surprising number to me because he played very strong at the end of the year, Nedeljkovic, and actually took over the starting spot for that last playoff push.
I called that on TikTok. I called that. You go on Christmas.
That's I mean, that's a good take. I mean, I would not have expected that. I was surprised that they signed Nedeljkovic last year, but you know, Kyle Dubas is he's high on buying low on people, so that's he was certainly a buy low candidate. That's for sure.
He's one of us. Kyle Dubas is one of us.
Yes, absolutely. 0G for life. So Tristan Jarry, I do still think is the starter here. He's got the contract. If they really wanted to deal him, they would have done it this offseason. So I do think that he's probably it's probably going to be like a 60-40.
That sounds right.
Situation. So Nedeljkovic probably will get a little bit more time, but Jarry I still think is the starter. Schedule quirks for the Penguins. They've got 14 back-to-backs. It's tied for 4th, so that actually makes Nedeljkovic a little bit more interesting. They have 31 off nights. That's tied for 11th. And their playoff schedule in weeks 22 to 24, they have 9 games, 4 off nights. Not a great schedule. And in weeks 23 to 25, they have 10 games with 4 off nights. Also not a good schedule. So, the playoff schedule for the Penguins, not great. But in terms of off nights and back-to-backs, they're actually not in the worst situation. So definitely still some value to be had here for Penguins. Power play projection. I've got Crosby, Malkin, Bryan Rust, Michael Bunting, Erik Karlsson playing on that top unit. Do you have any objections?
No, I love it. And I see a lot of value on this power play. Value all over the board on this power play. I like it.
100%. I think so. Michael Bunting's an interesting one because I do think that he's had limited power play time in his career so far, but the time that he has played on the power play, he's actually been pretty productive.
Yeah,
has had
he's
really
good.
Nice underlying numbers. So I like him, and he actually had a bit of success at the end of the year too, playing on that power play. So let's look at forward projections here. So I have a pretty bullish projection on Sid the Kid. He's got, I have him for 37 goals, 59 assists, 96 points. His Apples and Genos ADP is 29 and his Yahoo ADP is 26. So right in like the middle, the beginning to the middle of the third round. And yeah, that's where I've seen him go in most of the drafts I've been in. I like that spot for Sidney Crosby. What do you think about Crosby here?
I love him. Yeah. Again, he does everything. Power play points, hits. He gets you a ton of face-offs, good amount of shots. He can block. He's a phenom. And I don't like getting centers early unless it's like the big top 5 centers. But Crosby, I make an exception for. If Crosby falls to me in the mid second round, yeah, I'm taking him.
Yeah, for sure. Anthony Beauvillier, that's a guy that, so I projected him to play on the top line. A lot of people are not projecting him to play there. I think that there is a chance that he gets that spot. Drew O'Connor, I think Nate projected him to be on the top line because, it's for good reason. He did play a good amount of minutes with Crosby last year, so they've shown a propensity to move him up the lineup. But I do think Beauvillier is another guy that could get a shot there.
You wouldn't draft him though, or
no, absolutely not. I still only have him for 42 points here. So, So I mean, certainly a guy if he is playing on the wing that I might stream in if Pittsburgh has a good schedule. But no, I'm not super stoked about Beauvillier. Bryan Rust, I am very high on Bryan Rust. I have him for 32 goals, 37 assists, 69 points, which is very nice. I love Bryan Rust, and he's a guy that's gonna bring you huge value. His Apples and Genos ADP is 75, but his Yahoo ADP is 145.6. So
beautiful.
I really like Rust. I know Nate's really high on him as well. He had him for a similar projection. What do you think about Bryan Rust here?
Yeah, I love it. I had Bryan Rust multiple years. There's like one year, I think it was either last year or the year before, where he was like going into the 6th, 7th round. That was the only time I kind of backed off. But this guy is almost always a value pick, and especially with Gensel leaving town, I don't see why you wouldn't want to reach for Rust. That ADP is an absolute steal.
Yeah, absolutely. Evgeni Malkin, I've got him for a pretty high projection. I'm not confident in this one. I think he's probably, we've seen the best of Malkin for sure in his career. He's definitely on the tail end. I have him for 29 goals, 47 assists, 76 points. I think that's pretty high. Like he's probably going to be a little lower than that. His Apples and Genos ADP is 151. His Yahoo ADP 186. This is a guy that will bring you value. At that level, like that's basically the end of your draft. You can get Evgeni Malkin, so that's I think that's exceptional value for
great
him.
value.
Even if he brings you the same production he did last year, which was like 61 points.
It's really fun.
That's still pretty solid. So
he gets good minutes. He can get you some pims here and there. He's a bit of a pest, and these guys have missed 2 playoffs in a row. So I'm hoping he's pissed off and motivated.
100%. Michael Bunting, I have him for a big year of career highs: 25 goals, 36 assists, 61 points. He's not getting drafted in Yahoo leagues. In Apples and Genos leagues, he's at 171.7. Michael Bunting's a sleeper for me. This guy's going to get really good opportunity. I think he's going to probably play with Malkin. If it doesn't work out with Malkin, he's going to play with Crosby. He's going to play in the top 6 somewhere. I think he's probably the best left winger on this team right now. Just tons of opportunity here on the power play and at 5v5 for Michael Bunting. So I see him potentially popping, which is very exciting. What are your thoughts on him?
Yeah, again, pure value. 60-point player for free, nearly 30 goals. I like him. I like Bunting. He's always been good ever since, even on the Coyotes. I remember liking him on the Coyotes, and he went to the Leafs and really popped off. And I think people have forgotten that he exists. I'm sure a lot of people don't even remember that he's a Penguin, which is it's good. That's why he's not being drafted. So yeah, I like him. I'm taking him.
Yeah. And then I've got Rickard Rakell for 20 goals, 26 assists, 46 points, 129 hits. A bit of peripheral upside there, but this is a really low efficiency shooter that's probably not incredibly fantasy relevant, other than as a streamer.
Yeah.
And then on defense, we've got Kris Letang. I have him for 9 goals, 42 assists, 51 points, 148 hits, 134 blocks.
I love that.
In Apples and Geno's leagues, we've got him at 103. In Yahoo, 143 ADP. Kris Letang, not going to get a lot of power play time. It's unfortunate, but he still produces pretty well at 5v5. And yeah, it gets you tons of peripherals. So although he did see a bit of a dip last year, which is
for sure, which makes sense with Karlsson coming in and less ice time, and a
little less ice time, but they prioritized him a little more than I would have expected. So I mean that's certainly good for people that roster him on their teams. But and then we've got Erik Karlsson. So I've got him for 15 goals, 60 assists, 75 points. So a bounce back year for Karlsson.
I'm really excited for him.
Yeah, doesn't have a ton of peripheral upside, but I do see him. I mean, he'll be a huge part of that power play, and hopefully it bounces back. His Apples and Geno's ADP is 73.2, but in Yahoo it's 101.8. So that's actually massive value for Erik Karlsson. I don't know that I have a punt. I had Letang on here. I don't think he's a punt. No. My sleeper though is Michael Bunting. I do think there's a ton of value to be had on this team just because of how poor they were last year and because they're old. And so people are just kind of writing them off because they're old. So I think there's a ton of value to be had here. Rutger McGroarty is a guy that we should talk about. He had 16 goals, 36 assists in Michigan last year. And that was only in 36 games. And he's a guy that brings some grit. He's a guy that I think if they're struggling to find someone to play on the top line with Crosby that could get an opportunity there, that is the absolute best situation for him. But he's a guy that's going to play. Like he's going to have a spot in the lineup, I think. So
that's why they brought him in. They're not going to send him down. He's going to play. He's going to at least have a chance.
Yeah, he's a guy to keep an eye on and a guy that could potentially get some nice 5v5 deployments. So look out for him. I wouldn't draft him, but I would definitely be watching him close. And then my top 3 targets. Oh yeah, I have Sidney Crosby on the slide, but I actually changed it to Erik Karlsson just because Karlsson like that ADP is crazy low. Like
that's value.
It decreased significantly when I checked it again last night. So Erik Karlsson is my top guy. Bryan Rust, and then Michael Bunting. And then actually you could throw Malkin on there too.
Being so much value. This might be the sleeper team. Yeah. And on Karlsson, I love players that piss off managers the year before. People, he came off a Norris winning season last draft. People were getting him as their first defenseman in the 3rd round, and the guy just didn't perform. So everyone is scared off of this guy, and that means you're getting insane value with his ADP. So I just love these types of players, and I don't think you can lose at that draft capital.
Absolutely.